All right, so do you think there's a gap between minimum wage and living wage here in America?
Yes, I do believe there is a gap between there. Because when you look at the idea of the gap, when you look at the idea of minimum wage, you're talking about anywhere between $7.25 and $7.50. And I want you to understand this. When I started working in the 1980s, you were looking at the idea of minimum wage being at $4.25 and $4.50. So you're talking about in 30 years, it's only gone up $3. So there's a major problem with the idea of minimum wage because it's only gone up $3. But if you look at that, then what happens is the idea of the living wage has not increased. And that's starting to hurt the idea of a gap between the rich and the poor. And that becomes the issue. Because can most people live off a minimum wage? No, there's no way. That's why you start to see kids coming out of college going back home and living in the parents' basement. Because they can't afford it. They can't afford the idea of an apartment or a house or a car, insurance that goes along with that, food, utilities, what have you, they can afford it. A living wage, however, yes, but when you look at it, you have to have a minimum wage that has to increase to help out the living wage.
Okay, so how do you think that can be fixed? And obviously, there's really the gap there. Obviously, it's a big deal. Yeah, people are going back to their basements and stuff. That's sad. But how do you think that's going to be fixed, or if there is any problem to be fixed?
I really don't think it can be. I really don't. I think the issue becomes we've now become more of a service-oriented society. Like my job as a teacher, I'm service-oriented. Okay. And I'm not knocking any other jobs, but you don't see a lot of industrial jobs as we talked about in class. I don't see that, the class gap is getting bigger and bigger between the rich and the poor. The middle class is kind of shrinking within there. I don't see how the idea of everybody saying that now we got to raise the minimum wage to $15. $15 isn't going to solve the issue. I think what would solve the issue is that you have lower prices for insurance, for the idea of people to be able to live outside of their homes. And I don't see that happen. I really don't. Because both sides, the Democrats and the Republicans, aren't helping one another. Because the Republicans are looking at it from their standpoint, the Democrats are looking from their standpoint, and it's almost like it doesn't, it's a problem that won't be solved at the time.
And how do you think that affairs with the traditional American dream? Or what do you even think the American dream is, for that matter?
I don't think there is a dream anymore.
Not anymore? You think it's done with?
Yeah, I think now, because I'm one of those weird people that believes in the idea that it has to be a reality. Because if you're dreaming, you're sleeping. And I really mean that. I think the biggest thing is that I think it's killed the American dream, because even though you're starting to see immigrants coming into this country and so on and so on, it's harder now to make it. Because even when we got back into the recession of 2007, 2008, and 2009, there were people leaving this country. There were less immigrants coming in. And I don't see us correcting that because we're so divided as a nation that it's hard to correct the mistakes that's been made in the past.
So that's no solution whatsoever to that.
I really do. I honestly, and I say that as terrible as a teacher, that you come out that there's really not a massive solution. I don't see anybody working on that to correct it. Because if they were, it should have been done by the 50s.
Yeah.
But now nobody wants to correct it, because you go back and you look at the 70s, we talk about stagflation under Ford, we look at oil prices under Carter, our economy finally got a little bit better in 84, but we see that ebb and flow within there, and the problem is there's not many jobs out there that are going to be high paying jobs that kids are trying to go after, because we're all stuck in the STEM world. And I think that's another issue too, because now all of a sudden it's only science, technology, engineering, and math. Well, there's other jobs out there. The problem is when you graduate in 5 years from college, what's out there? That's the scary thing that you start to see. And I think that becomes the idea of the dream, because a lot of kids your age are more concerned in the idea of, when I go off to college, I'm going to have accrued a debt that I can't pay off. And I think that starts to show more of that living wage gap in the minimum wage gap.
So there's just no American dream anymore. And that does affect that.
It does affect it. I really do. I think it does. I'm just lucky that I have a job, my wife has a job, and hope to God my kid can get a job.
Different timing as well, obviously.
And it is. It's a different time period too. I think that's the issue.
Do you think that there is a gap between the minimum wage and the living wage?
Absolutely yes.
Why do you think so?
Because I am on salary.
Do you think that there's a solution to this problem?
We need to, I think, Bernie Sanders.
Make bonus salaries?
Bernie Sanders, Democrats.
Oh, Democrats, sorry. But you do realize that if you raise the salaries, the prices of products are also going to go up.
No,
They won't. We think that they won't.
yeah. Let's get the people rich a little bit.
We think that people need to get rich.
Yeah.
So what is your definition of the American dream?
I don't know. I've been here 35 years. Stay healthy. That's all. Right
Wait,
now.
where are you from?
I'm from Turkey.
So how do you compare your standard of living here from your standard of living over there?
Life is tough right now. Tough everywhere.
But
Everywhere, minimum wage and stuff like that.
Right,
Hard to make living.
right. So you think that this gap interferes with the American dream?
Yes. 1950s was different.
Yes.
After war, Second World War, it was different.
I think that's it.
Good.
Yeah.
Do you think that the gap interferes with the American dream?
Repeat your question again.
Do you think that the gap of the living wage between the minimum wage interferes with the American dream?
Sure does.
Why do you think that?
If you think enough, you will realize that if you don't get a good job and make good money, and have a good house, and you get good love, right?
So what is the definition of the American dream?
You have to be educated. Finish the school. Get the right education. Get a degree. Understand your math. Learn how to manage your finances. This is the main lack of education in American society. As we are living, the youngsters do not get the education in high school. We should be taught to them how to manage their funds.
So do you think there's a gap between minimum wage and living wage today in America?
100%.
Why is that?
Because why is that?
Like, why do you?
Why do I believe there's that?
Yeah.
Because living wage, you can't live on it.
Minimum wage should work something that's not.
Yeah, you can't live on it.
Not even supporting yourself.
Let's be honest. John
My
accepts
bills,
me.
no.
So much less a family as well. Even having.
Oh, no. No. No, you can't. Even if I'm a single mom with one kid, no.
Do you think there's any solutions to this? Because I said before, like obviously, if you do raise the minimum wage as well, that puts taxes on other items as well, especially in stores and so on.
Oh, yeah.
So you think there's a solution, or you think it should still be raising the wage, or you think that it's at a level, even though it's not, even though it's not livable, you think it's still good enough to maintain, especially with inflation and so on.
That's a good question. Well, I still think it's I
Do you
mean,
think it should still raise it? As the solution, it should still raise it, even if it's black.
but when you even when you raise it, everything else that I'm trying to buy is going to get raised too. If minimum wage goes up, then everything I got to pay for goes up.
I just saw a thing about Walmart. I saw a thing on Walmart basically because their minimum wage is like what, 12?
10 something.
10 or 12? And if they were to raise it to like 15 or 16, which is like manageable for at least one person. By rating, by like statistics, every item will only raise by 120. And I'm not sure 100% how true that is, but I did read it.
I'm not sure how
But I mean, people do say that it's not exactly like it's not as bad. It would get bad and just make it sound we're just making it seem worse than it is. So you think the ultimate solution is just to raise it like that?
If what you're saying is true and there's facts behind that, then I will say so.
Alright, last question. Do you think that this gap between minimum and living wage affects the American dream? Do you we're stuck in the middle of these jobs. And
Yeah, because you can't, that whole American dream thing, you can't do that.
let's be back in here.
To have your own house and your own car and your own family and you have a good job and be able to provide for your family and not worry about,
You can't do that.
you can't do that. You're going to be up and built, and then the whole thing is go to college. You go to college, you get a good job. Then you go to college, and then you're $100,000 in debt, and you're paying out the rest of your life. And it's like a cycle. It's like a vicious cycle. You're stuck. That's what I guess.
That there is a gap between the minimum wage and the living wage.
Yes, I don't think you can live on minimum wage,
Okay,
whatever
why-
it might be.
Why do you think that?
Because I don't make minimum wage and there's tons of things to pay for and I still don't have like tons of extra money and I make way more than minimum wage.
Okay, do you think that there's a solution to this problem?
Yes, they could raise the minimum wage so we didn't have such a disparity between the super rich people and the super poor people, which continues to just go like this in our country.
Okay, what is your definition of the American dream?
I think being able to live the life you want to live, which I don't think you can do on minimum wage, if that's your follow-up question.
Okay, that was definitely the question. Well, you think it interferes with minimum wage. Do you think that this is like very serious? Do you think it's like interfering with like the U.S. as a whole?
Absolutely, because I think we're getting the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. And there doesn't seem to be much of a middle class anymore. It's like the upper class and the lower class. And that's gonna cause us a lot of problems down the line. For you guys, not so much for me, because I'll be dead by then.
So why? No, not to that. Well, why do you think so? Why do you think the solution is to raise the minimum wage? Because if you raise it, you realize other products get raised as well. Like prices of other things you want to pay for also get raised. Everything money has to come from somewhere.
Right, you're right. But I think we need to pump more money into the people who can't afford to feed their families. And so, yeah, that must be a democratic principle.
Okay.
That's very good.
Thank you.